In the first part of this tutorial, we went through the modeling stage, and now we already have the model of our chocolate. So we will duplicate it a lot of times and simulate the physics so we can end up with a pile of chocolates. Alright, so we have our model, now it's time to simulate some physics. So the first thing I'm gonna do is to go here and apply the mirror modifier. I'm happy with the shape already, I'm not going to change it anymore. We need to apply the mirror modifier, and I'm going to explain why in a moment. In fact, I'm going to explain it now. What happens is that right now, if we start doing a physics simulation with this heart, okay, I'm going to do it just with this heart so you can see it, okay, and then just start again for the rest of them. So let's just add a physics simulation. Let's go here to the physics tab, and under rigid body, I will just click rigid body and select it, make it active. Okay, cool. Now let's go to the top and let's add a plane. Scale it, because we need a floor for this object to fall onto. Okay, all right. Now if I take this heart and move it up and for example just rotate it, if we press R twice I can orbit the object, so I will put it something like this. And if I press play now or press Alt A to just play the animation, you can play here on the timeline, you will see how the object now falls and goes through the floor. This is because the floor has not set up. I need to go here and add a rigid body to it too. But now if I press Alt A, they will both fall. What I need to do is to set the floor as a passive object. So it will only receive collisions from another object, but it won't have a simulation itself. So let's press Alt A now, and you can see how the heart falls down. But this is the problem. You can see how it behaves exactly as if there was no mirror on it, because the simulation is applied only on the real object and the mirror part of the object is generated afterwards. So I will just click on apply. Okay, so now the mirror is actually a part of the object. You can see how it turned all into real mesh. So now when I go here and press Alt A again, you can see how the simulation is much better. But still we could be getting some intersections. Let's see. We might be getting some intersection. It's working pretty well, and usually it does. But if you need a very accurate simulation and you have a tricky mesh, like with tricky I mean with cavities and such, the most cool way of doing it is by going here and selecting mesh. So instead of just taking the basic shape, the main shape of the mesh, it actually takes the actual mesh. Okay, for now I'm going to leave it as a convex hull, and then we'll change that later if we need to. Okay, so before we continue, I'm going to press Alt G and Alt R for this object. Actually just disable the rigid body constraint. There we go. So now I have the object just reset to its main position. I'm going to select this floor and press Shift S to send the selection, the cursor to selected. Or even better, I'm going to press Shift C so the cursor goes to the center of the scene, and I'm going to select now the floor, press Shift S and selection to cursor. So now the plane is right in the middle of the scene. I'm going to make it a lot bigger, and just because this may influence something, I will just press Ctrl A to apply the scale. This is important because sometimes if we scale an object, if the scale of an object, we can press N and check it out. We can see that the scale of this object is 1 because we have only modified it inside the edit mode, okay? But if we scale the object, you can see how the scale is not 1 anymore. Okay, this may influence the rigid body simulation, okay? So it's better if we have the scale at 1. So if we have an object and we scale it, and we have something in the scale different than 1, we can just press Ctrl A, apply the scale, and so it will, this current state will become 1 again. All right. So now I'm going to duplicate this object a lot of times. I'm going to select the lamp and the camera, move them to another layer with M. Pressing M, you can move to a different layer. Just move it there. And now the floor will be on the second layer. So now I have the floor here and the hearts here. I only will have the hearts in this layer. So let's start duplicating this. a lot of times. And when I say a lot, I say a lot. So let's just drag a lasso around these ones and press Shift D again. Just duplicate it a bunch of times. Select all of them and duplicate it again. All of them and duplicate them again. And duplicate them again. Okay, I think this will be enough. Okay, we could add much more, but remember that if you go over the top, your computer may be stuttering later or something. All right. So if we press now A, we select all of them, but it may happen that none of them become the main object. Okay, like for example, let me just show you an example. If we press Shift and click on the second layer, we can see the floor and the hearts. What happens is that when you select different objects, when you hold Shift and click on other objects, you see that the final one, the one that you select last, is the active one. It's highlighted in a different way. All right, so that's the active one. And this is very important for what we are going to do, because for the physics, we are going to set up the physics for one of the objects, and then the rest of them will pick them from that active one. So it is important that we have an active one. And in fact, you will see how if we don't have an active one, the options won't work. So if we select the plane, for example, and we press Ctrl I to invert the selection, we will select all of the hearts. But as none of them has been selected manually, all of them has been selected at the same time. There is no last one, and so there is no active one. So we have a lot of objects selected, but we have no active one. So if I go here to the Physics tab, I can add active, okay? But it will probably add it to the plane, okay? Because the plane was selected before, so it's probably the active objects. But anyway, the example didn't work out as I expected, but it may happen, because it has happened to me sometimes, that you don't have an active object and these options are grayed out. You can't use them. Okay, so what you have to do is to just select one of the hearts, and now you can add active. Okay, and this works with all the objects. But right now, let's say that we wanted to change this because the compass hole is not working properly. We wanted to change it to mesh. So if I just change it to mesh, it will only affect the active one. If I go to another one, you can see how they have not been changed. Okay, so I select all of them. I deselect the plane just to avoid problems. And I have this active one now. This is the mesh one, the one that we set up. We could just go and shift click on another one and just select mesh for that one. And from this panel here, we can copy from active. And this will copy the settings that we have in the active object to all the rest of the objects selected. So right now, any of the objects have the mesh option in. So let's select all of them again, except for the plane. Select an active one, just turn it back to convex hull, and copy from active. All right. So now if I press Alt A, we see that they start falling, and we have a nice simulation. Perfect. But we are having another problem now. A lot of problems, I know. We're having another problem, and is that we don't have walls to contain these chocolates, and so they are just spreading and falling down the sides of the plane. You can see how they just run away from us, and we want to eat them all. We want to contain them. So what I want to do is to select this plane, and I'm going to model some very basic walls. So let's just add a loop cut, and when we add a loop cut, remember that we can move the scroll wheel to just add more edges to the loop cut. Do the same here. Remember that the loop cut you can do with Control R. Now press S, Y to scale on this axis, and select these other loops, and press S, X to scale on the X axis. There we go. And now I'm going to press Alt and right mouse button twice to select this outer border and move it up. So with this we will have our recipient to contain all these chocolates, and we can even just go and make it smaller, or maybe just a little bigger. Press Ctrl A to apply the scale, and just click Alt A or click here on the play button for the timeline. And whoa, what happened there? All right, something's not right there. Oh, okay. Okay, look, this is what I meant. The floor now is a convex hole, and so the convex hole doesn't detect holes on the mesh. So we have a cavity here on this floor, and right now the hearts are just standing on the top. All right, it's taking like the surface, not detecting the hole. So what we want to do is come here and select mesh instead, and now you will see that it will work nicely. There we go. Okay, and now the chocolates will just stay there. That's perfect. We can even come back and just for the sake of this tutorial, let's go over the top. Let's go add a lot more chocolates, and we will need more time in the simulation. So let's just go here, jump to the, I don't know, frame number 750 and press E on the keyboard, and that will set the end frame. Or you can alternatively just go here and write it, whatever you prefer. And so now let's press Alt A, and we are seeing the effect of the floor even if it's hidden, because it's being calculated on the simulation. So now we have a lot. This may cause some stuttering on the simulation or anything, but it's pretty cool. All right, so the simulation has finished. Okay. And so now I select all of the hearts, and what I need to do is to delete the rigid body simulation and just be left with this position of the hearts by this frame. Okay, so I'm going to just, well, some of the hearts are really not right. I'm going to, you can see that if I go here to the end, you can see the timeline that the simulation is cached, and we can preview it like if it was a real animation. All right, but if we, for example, just change some parameter or just go outside of Blender and come back or something like that, they will disappear. This will disappear, and we'll have to simulate it again. So let's say, let's check this out. Okay, maybe we have to change something around here. So we need to do two things here. All right, we will start for the first one. Let me see if I can show you some example, because I think there are some hearts that are intersecting with others, but I'm not really finding them now. So it was maybe my imagination. So if that happened, we should go ahead and just change this simulation. Instead of convex hole, just select the mesh, all right? Because some of these areas here that have a curve going inside a cavity might not be just simulated totally correctly. But the other thing we need to do is that we are only getting the simulation until the frame 250. What happens with this is that when we start a simulation, a rigid body world is created, and that has the frame range that we have set up. You remember that after our first simulation, we just increased the number of frames of the animation, but the rigid body world keeps having that limit. So if we go here to the scene panel, the scene tab, sorry, I can go down, and here we have the rigid body cache, and I can set an end frame. So let's set, for example, 700. There we go. And now we can keep the simulation going. So let's just look how it works. And now it should continue, and it's continuing, yeah. So we give some time for the hearts to settle. They are not still just jumping. All right, something like this would be enough. There is this one falling down here. Okay, some of them are still positioning themselves. All right, this should be cool. Okay, so there are a lot of things we could do now, but what I will do is to just select all of these ones and apply the transformation. So let's apply the transformation. Okay. And now just remove the physics data. So now if I go back or anything, you can see that there is no animation. And if I press Alt A, nothing happens. There is no simulation going on. I just took the simulation result, applied the transformation, so the position and rotation of the objects are fixed, and then removed the rigid body data from these objects, so they are not included into any other simulation. And this makes them just stay there forever. Right? This is like if we just move them manually. So this is a very useful technique for when we need to drop a lot of things on the floor of a room, for example, and we just apply, rigid body to the objects. We just throw them, let them fall, and when they are settled, we just apply this transformation and remove the rigid body data. Okay. So now we already have our physics simulation. In the next part of this tutorial, what I'm going to do is to just go for the rendering part, right? So we are going to shade this object to look as chocolate. We are going to manipulate the lighting, position the camera, and do the final rendering.